So let's talk about this other deal. This one's kind of crazy. I don't know if I can do a whiteboard on this, but maybe I'll try. I don't know how to do whiteboards on Zoom. Anyway, this deal is a deal we bought for 80, sold for 100. So that's a 20K profit. But there was a whole lot of in between there, right? So we've got a mortgage that we took over subject to. We've got that we got the seller to finance a portion of their equity, and then we sold it on seller financing to a buyer. And the big victory on this for us this week, part of why I'm including it, is that we paid off the seller the note that we owed her. It was a 1 year balloon for 23,000 to the seller, and its due date coincided with our business completely crashing. And I had sort of written that note with confidence because we were closing, an average of 4 deals a month for the last 2 years and making a good amount of money. And I was like, yeah, in 12 months time, we'll be able to set aside 23,000 and pay her off, right? But then we had this major downturn this year, and we had when the note came due, we had nothing to pay this woman off with. We were not even paying salaries to me and my brother, to the two partners in the business for multiple months in a row. We had only been paying the team and paying our expenses. And so we didn't have $23,000 to pay her. And so we had to just communicate with her and be like, hey, this is going to be a little bit delayed. We had a couple of deals that we thought were going to close that didn't, which is true. We had a $20,000 profit deal that ended up having title issues that killed it. And then we had another one that was whatever, 12,000, and that also had title issues. It was delayed. It eventually closed, but it didn't close in time to put money towards paying her off. And we had sort of earmarked those deals to pay her off. So anyway, I'll go into the numbers on this deal a little bit because it's kind of fun. And hopefully if you're a nerd like I am about deals, you'll appreciate it. Let's see if I can share my screen here. And we'll just break it down, try and keep it fairly brief here. Screen share. I'm just going to open up Google Docs and do it that way. There we go. We'll call this one Patton Street. And I'll blow this up a little bit. Let's make this bigger. So we got this thing under contract for 80K in April of 2024. Forgive my typing. I'm not a great typist, and I'm going to take this highlight stuff out of here. And then we were having a hard time selling it. We thought that the retail was around 120, but we had a bunch of flippers and other people say, no, there's not enough meat on the bone there for me to do that. And they were offering us, our best offers were right around our contract price, 75 to 80. So we were kind of in trouble because we delayed with the seller, and we didn't get back to her right away and say we needed a price reduction because we were not getting much response from people. So we didn't feel like we could get a price reduction. So we kept pushing forward and trying to find like an individual buyer that we could sell it to, who would do it as a handyman special or something. And we did an open house on it even. And that's actually where we found our final buyer. So this deal had a first buyer that came in June 3rd, buyer one, right? And he was going to buy it for 100K. And then he fell out. He found there was a gas tank underneath the house during his inspection. I guess maybe they were heating this thing with mineral oil or something. And that spooked him. And he said, I'm not doing this deal. And then we were afraid we weren't going to be able to sell it at all because of that. But then we did an open house later on, and we did find another buyer who we signed a contract with in July. I think it was like July 7, buyer two. And he's also going to do this for 100K and he's going to do it on owner financing with 15K down, which is great. Gives us some cash, right? No, I'm sorry, he did 10K down. I'm thinking all the numbers here. So I'm writing this out. And so the thing with this is we originally thought we were going to do this on, just as a straight assignment. So we had told the seller she was getting cash. So now I have to go back to the seller, right? And say, because she's freaking out. She's now, you know, April, mid-April. I think this was like April 14th was the contract, right? Um, so she's now May, June, almost 3 months from when we signed a contract with her. She's already moved into a new house and started a new mortgage. She's pissed and she's frustrated, justifiably so. We'd taken way too long. Part of it's on her because her house was worse than she thought it was and or said it was, and it was hard to sell. And there was a gas tank underneath it that nobody knew about her. She said she didn't know about. So I went back to the seller and I said, "Hey, we can make a deal happen because now we have this buyer for 100K and he's ready to go with owner financing. But here's what we can do. We can give you 12K down and we're going to finance the remaining 23K of your equity. And we're going to take over your mortgage of, I think it's 46K. Let's see if this adds up to 80. Subject to. What do you think of that? Right? So it's 40, 50, 60, 70, 70. Yeah. So maybe it's 45 to get to 80K, right? It's ballpark where we are. And she went for this. She was like, okay, as long as I can get the 12K up front, then she's got some breathing room and we're going to finance the 23K equity and with a 1 year balloon, which is putting a little bit of pressure on us to come up with that money. But we were doing well, we were making money and I was like, yeah, we'd set aside 23K over a year, no big deal. So that means we're paying her on this, we're paying her 350 a month and zero interest because she didn't ask for interest and I didn't offer it. That's something I learned from Pace Morby. Um, you know, you don't have to offer interest. You can if you want to, but I was like, let's just do 350 a month. So we're paying down only principal, which is really nice for us over 12 months, right? Because if you're paying compound interest, you're not chipping away the principal as much. So we end up closing this deal with this whole thing. So we got the buyer. I have to explain to him how subject to works because he's buying it owner financing with an underlying loan that's subject to, right? So that's a thing we had to work on. And then with the seller, I had to explain everything to her. She was a little bit nervous about the subject to, still is. I get a lot of phone calls from her or have gotten a lot of phone calls and emails from her. But this all works out. So we're paying 12K down. The buyer's bringing 10K. So we're only really out of pocket 2,000 at closing, maybe a little bit more with closing costs, just call it 3,000. But our overall profit here is we're buying it for 80 and we're selling it for 100, right? And so our overall, going into the deal profit is around 20K. Like I said, maybe some closing costs and stuff. But the 2K here gets reimbursed, but then closing costs. So anyway, say we're into it we're going to make about 20K on it. So that's a pretty nice deal to make 20,000 on a house, right? And now we've paid off this mortgage. So when the mortgage came due, we had paid down enough that we had about 19K due on the seller note, right? And then we weren't able to pay her because we had run out of money. So we had to tell her, can you give us 30 days? She gave us 30 days. We agreed to pay 1% interest on the balance outstanding, right? Over that 30 days. And so she was good with that. And then after 30 days, we still couldn't pay her. Now she's getting a little bit pissed again. And so we're like, okay, we can give you a couple grand now and we need another 30-day extension. So we did that, included the 1% interest, gave her a couple grand. And then this month in October, we were able to finally pay her off. And so once we paid her off, thank God, like she's paid off. Whoops, trying to do these. Paid off in October. Once she's paid off, now our cash flow picture changes, right? Because this buyer here is paying 1,100 a month because he's financed over 10 years. So he's got 120 payments at 10%. And I know his, because I just looked at this, he was financing like, it's approximately, with after his down payment, he's rolling in the closing costs to his financed amount. So he's financing 91.5K. Whoops, that's 9.5, but he's financing 91.5. So all of this leads to a payment of $1,100, right? So when we're paying this mortgage, the subject to payment on this is 632. So when we were paying her off, we're paying 982, right? So just call it 1,000, and we're making $100 in cash flow, right? Because he's got 1,100 he's paying us, and we're paying out 1,000. So we're making $100 cash flow on this property for this first 12 months, which is nice. It's a little bit of cash flow. That's great. But now that we've paid her off, this 350 that we were paying her now is just coming to us, right? Because now we're paying 632 for the subject to mortgage per month, and 632 a month, right? We're paying that per month, and he's paying us this, right? So we're now making what, 450, 470, whatever. So now we have positive cash flow of $468, let's just say, a month on this, right? But that's not all. Now we have nearly $500, call it 450, whatever, positive cash flow on this. But the interest on this loan, if you amortize this, and we'll share the loan calculator here, he financed 91,499 over 10 years at 10% interest. So I guess he's paying 1,200. So I got this wrong. My bad. We're getting an extra $100 a month. He's paying 145, and he bought it for 100, right? So that means we're making 53, because the down payment, we already made that 10K down payment. So on this 91.4, we're making 53K. So if we go back to the whiteboard, we got to fix this. It's 1,200 a month he's paying, right? And then whatever, I'm not going to recalculate all that stuff. You get the picture. But then the 460K, we get 468 a month, and then the interest income on this is 53K on the financed amount. So in total, we're making the 20K down and the 53K on the interest. And if we knock off a couple for expenses or whatever, we're still making 70K plus on this deal. And that's why it was worth going through all the stress. And again, the 70K, if he pays this loan off early, we're not going to make 70K, right? We're not going to make all the interest. But he's already been paying on it for a year plus. And if he pays 3, 5, 7 years, it's all gravy. So we might not make 70, but if he pays for the entire 10 years, we're making 70. So that's the breakdown of that. Hopefully that's fun for people. I love doing this stuff. This is where I shine in real estate, is putting together creative deals. I have a lot of fun doing it, and it takes some calculating and some creativity, and it also takes some difficult conversations with buyers and sellers, but I find it to be worth it. And there you go.